But the loudest bang came from the main arrival, and this arrival was not from just anywhere, but from Washington. Washington allowed a leak, and as far as I understand, a rather realistic one of what the Washington plan will look like for that very piece that has been discussed for several months already. And Washington, from its point of view, launched the most realistic version of the conditions for this peace. This peace, let's be honest, is completely joyless for Ukraine, but it is also extremely toxic for Russia. If the Trump version of peace becomes operational, well, what then? Highly doubtful. But nevertheless, then the Russian Federation will have to mobilize all state reserves, Vaseline, and perhaps nationalization, the petroleum jelly that is in private hands. It's not hard to predict that every tube will be accounted for. The fact is that Russia will have to shove its state grandeur and all ambitions up its own backside. And the process of shoving this state grandeur back into the rear is in general a very painful procedure. 15 or 17 years ago, this grandeur, from there, it was extracted. Back then it was a bit smelly, but generally small. But once exposed to the air, it swelled significantly and even hardened in places. And now Russia will somehow have to shove it back, because that's exactly what Trump's plan entails. Yes, Ukraine loses, but it is still most painful for Russia. Therefore, it can be said that the procedure will be painful and will require the use of all reserves of the country's Vaseline. Of course, all the patriots are horrified by this Trump plan, but not because they are horrified that Putin's dreams of fully conquering Ukraine have collapsed, but because the patriots understand that they, as an integral part of Russia's greatness, must also be returned to their place, namely in the rear. And more than 3 years of war and utter disgrace, expulsion from Europe, from the civilized world, the reputation of territories inhabited by deranged orcs, all will be in vain. Putin will be able to bring back a few scraps of Donbass as the spoils of his raid. Russia will leave along today's front line a pitiful spoil in the form of ruins and dumps of Donbass. And even that will be left conditionally, not recognizing any rights over the territories it has occupied. I suspect that in this regard, Trump has nothing. There is nothing good for Russia. After all, the most important thing in any plan, especially in an international and diplomatic plan, is to lay down a powerful and reliable foundation for a large future war. And in this sense, Trump's plan is the perfect groundwork that will ensure the perpetuity of the conflict and prepare Ukraine and Europe and the world as a whole for the moment when, due to internal reasons, the first serious internal fractures occur in the Russian Federation and the Reich begins to collapse. And then, of course, everything occupied will be returned. Yes, returned at the cost, of course, of great bloodshed in the cleared territories, but someone will have to pay for Putin's incompetence and for their own gullibility. For those who decided to trust the posters, saying Russia is here forever, an amazing inability, really, to see historical processes in their real scale and in their temporal unfolding. This is a trait not only of today's Kremlin, but of historical Russia in general. The immediacy, this primitive, phenomenal momentariness of consciousness, has always been the hallmark of Russian politics. The result was two global national catastrophes in 1917 and in 1991. They did not teach the Russians anything at all, just like many other unpleasant events. After all, the purpose of Russia's existence, the meaning and purpose of its existence today, what are they? And it is clear that the only one. The goal is to make as many people as possible unhappy, disadvantaged, and those who refuse to be disadvantaged to imprison or kill. Russia, indeed, as a state, has no other purpose.